Falconers and fops. Bake up a fresh batch of bird lime, harness your game ferrets, and become the living embodiment of the goddess Diana.
Because it's time to talk Tull to me.
I wish I was the living embodiment of anything, really.
Of any god.
Yeah.
Minor deity.
Yeah.
Honestly, a
just an
fiendish
idea.
imp would be great.
Welcome back to the podcast. I am Omen Sade.
And I am Nick McGill.
Together we are Feckless Moans.
And this is Talk Tull to Me.
A sporting chase through the teeming forests of prog rock in which Nick, the horseback himbo, and Omen Side Saddle Sade will keep a keen eye out for D. Palmer droppings and pick up John Evan when he falls out of the saddle. Every tipsy foray an album, every trumpet blast a song. Nick and I will not rest until we have mounted above our mantelpieces the tattered skins of every single song Jethro Tull has ever released. So-ho! So-ho! Release the sounds!
I definitely thought you were going to say that we would have the tattered skins of every member of Jethro Tull.
Maybe the tattered foreskins.
Could have.
You don't have to use that.
Too much.
I don't know where that came from.
Too much, too far.
Too soon.
Too soon. Yeah, welcome back. We are about halfway through Songs from the Wood now, as of this episode.
Actually, a pertinent question regarding that, Nick.
Yeah.
This was released as a vinyl. Do we know where the flip is?
We do. I believe it's after this song. Let me double check. Nope. Solstice Bells will round out side A.
Okay, so we're still firmly on side A.
That's true. We are nearing the end, but not yet. We're
drifting toward the spinning center.
That's right. And I will throw up, and you will scream in joy.
All over my shoes.
Yep. So before we dive into the song of the day, we have just a little snippet about the album itself. We're still working our way through the facts there.
Yes.
Coming after the album Too Old to Rock and Roll, specifically, this is a quote from Ian that pertains to that. I think there were more than a few journalists at the time who saw our move toward folk as an admission that we were taking to heart the title of the track, Too Old to Rock and Roll, Too Young to Die. We were indeed too old for heavier music and therefore had to find a more tranquil path, so they believed. The media saw this as an opportunity to rip into Jethro Tull. The reality was that, as I wrote it in an ironic fashion, they really missed the point. Not for the first time, the joke was on them, and they weren't bright enough to realize. Of course, when our next album was Songs, they all felt we had succumbed to old age.
Wow. Which is so funny because actually the sound in Songs from the Wood is so much more hardcore and more rock and roll in a way than Too Old.
You think so?
In a way, yeah. I mean, in terms of the energy, but
yeah.
Also, that is the most Ian Anderson quote ever.
It 100% is. You didn't get the joke. You were wrong and dumb, and boy, look at me. That was my Ian impression.
That was excellent. That was eerie. So, Nick, I actually have a little quote from a book. Actually, hold on a second. Let me just ring this. Yes, Mary, could you bring me that book from my library? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, Mary. Oh my God! Please don't bring a gun in here. That's not necessary.
What?
I'm getting ready for the big hunt. I that's fine, but just please don't wave it around in the study if you don't mind. That's right. It's not loaded. It was loaded. Yes.
Good thing it's a musket and there is only one bullet in there.
Please, just sweep up the plaster later and thank you for the book. All right. So here we have from the book A Passion Play, the story of Ian Anderson and Jethro Tull by Brian Raby. In the chapter Tull Renascent.
Renascent meaning, what, reborn? Rebirth?
Rebirthing.
Renascent. Becoming active or popular again, specifically.
Yeah, like a baby coming out of the womb.
That is, they're becoming popular again, yeah. They had a down phase before that.
They do get more popular once they exit the womb.
That's what I hear.
The bucolic frolic, that is Songs from the Wood, benefited from Anderson's move from the city to the country. He began to embrace all things woodsy and reflected his newfound surroundings in song. Needless to say, it was one of those brighter albums. But Anderson didn't just retire into a wooded area, he took on the responsibility for an actual working farm. All of this showed through on the album, a combination of English and Celtic folk roots, but with some heavy metal mandolin quotations around.
Wait, what part was quoted? The heavy metal or the
heavy
mandolin?
metal mandolin?
Oh, the whole thing, okay.
Yeah. The portative pipe organ made its debut into the Jethro Tull live show, which saw Ian with his hair shorter and sporting riding breeches and crop, like some English country squire, which, you could argue, he was.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah. And I think this is around the era where he started doing the bowler hat too. If it might be a little bit later, I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
Which there was I was watching a concert on YouTube, a 1977 concert, and he's got this bright red bowler hat on that doesn't match anything else that he's wearing. But it's this bright red bowler. Yeah.
So, Nick, with all of those tidbits, shall we reveal what is the song about which we are talking Tull today?
Yes, if you have not guessed it and you have not listened to Songs from the Wood religiously and know the tracks by heart and have not looked at the title of this podcast, surprise, it's Hunting Girl.
Oh, Nick, this is a favorite song of mine very much.
That does not really surprise me. I need to go pray.
Seems like I'm hearing a lot of judgment in your voice.
To go confess my sins.
Let's dive in, shall we? Shall we have a listen?
Yeah, let's ride on into Hunting Girl.
All right. Well, Nick, I am just back from my cold shower.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Took a shot of grappa and a shot of espresso.
Yes, and went and got slapped by a new priest and an old priest.
I was going to say by a nun, but yeah.
Oh, no more nuns. So that is Hunting Girl, Nick.
What a damn good song that is. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, where does this rank, Nick, in your overall kind of pantheon of Tull songs? Is this one of the ones that you really enjoy and connect with, or is this like, I respect it, but, you know?
It's really difficult to take anything off of this album as a whole and put it somewhere, because the album itself falls, like if I were doing like a top 10 list, there would be like Moths and Reasons for Waiting, the album Songs from the Wood in the slot, and then just go down. It's very difficult. But I mean, if you put a flute to my head, I would have to say this is probably top 20.
Okay.
I don't know if I'd go so far as to say top 10, but I'd say top 20, I think.
You know, and I do want to acknowledge, you know, every Tull fan has that album which is super special for them.
Yeah.
Or those albums that are very special for them.
Sure.
And, you know, I just want to speak into the space, our bias.
Right.
In the sense that this album was very influential for both of us and we frickin' love it.
Yeah. For any number of reasons, for a variety of reasons. And we each have our own different reasons.
Secret reasons.
For really love secret that I'll never tell reasons. Maybe we'll make that a Patreon goal. If we make enough money, I'll tell you my dirty secrets about this album.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, like it's so difficult to to separate it, because even though the critics kind of said this is a concept album, and Ian has very vociferously said no, I don't see it as a concept, but it is so thematically built together, strategically and very sonically. It all works together in one piece. And because this is not an album that I'll be like, okay, I want to listen to this song, I want to listen to this song. If I'm listening to anything off of Songs from the Wood, it's the entire thing.
Yeah.
And it's not a long album either, so which makes it very convenient to be able to do that.
It's almost as if Ian didn't create it as a concept album, but we listening to it created a concept for it in our own hearts.
And honestly, more than any band I can think of, that seems to be a regular thing for anyone listening to Tull. Like you said, they all have their own special albums for those number of reasons. I think that's the case for Tull, because their music fits so well together. It's easy to congeal as a clot in your heart as an album as opposed to individual songs.
Yes, a life-giving clot.
Thank you. My cardiologist will be sending you my bill.
Well, why don't we talk a little bit about the song specifically? What have we got musically here, Nick? This is quite a lot to unpack, but what are some of the things you observe?
Well, we've got a pretty epic opener. It's another instance of everything rolling in pretty much at once. I don't think there's anything that gets maybe the organ. Does the organ start off right in the beginning?
Well, now, so here's where we get into a little bit of difficulty, because there are actually two organs. There is John Evan on his regular organ, and there's Dee Palmer on the portative organ,
yeah.
But there are actually some pretty clear examples of where you hear them both at the same time, and you can actually listen and think, oh, those are different instruments.
Yeah, okay. So just to clarify really quickly, I don't think we need to go too much into it, but portative organ the word portative comes from the Latin verb to carry, so it's a portable, like a dinky little organ.
Right.
Yeah. It honestly looks like a child's instrument, a little Fisher-Price portative organ, yeah. My first organ. Dee Palmer's first organ. So yeah, you're obviously going to be getting different sounds from the build of the different instruments.
Yeah. But then throughout the song, we have, because sometimes it is really full on, like you say. For me, the sort of driver of this song is Barrymore Barlow, who just, oh my gosh, just charges ahead, thrusts ahead with the drum.
Rocks the hell out of it, yeah.
And gives it this feeling of movement forward, like you're being carried along on the back of a muscular horse, for instance. Yeah, totally. He even and he puts some of those, and even some of his fills. Yeah, they're very reminiscent of horse hooves.
Yeah, he has a way of blending the snare and the bass to get that feel of a trotting or running horse, yeah.
And he switches up the rhythm sometimes. So sometimes you have this very sort of like, it almost tricks you into thinking it's 4 on the floor, and then he'll do a crazy run. It's sort of like dum dum dum.
At this point, classic Barrymore that we've seen, and I love it. And often paired together, the two. We would pair it with John Glascock's bass.
Absolutely.
But John is very forward in this song.
But again, doing a similar thing where he will sometimes play a run of 3 or 4 of the same bass note very regularly in a row, and then do some kind of a crazy bass flourish. Dum 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 dum.
Yeah, they let him step forward, and fairly regularly is a nice kind of off to the side piece in this song is he and Martin will talk back and forth between some really nice electric stings offset by John's bass coming in.
Yeah. Overall, this is a great example sonically of how to use all the bandmates together, but then also give each of them a moment to shine individually. It's very, very cool the way it's composed. There are even some essentially full rests in this song where everything will just for a second almost entirely die out, and then one instrument will lead the charge again.
Yeah. Usually Martin, I think.
Yes.
But there's enough echo or reverb or whatever. There's enough bleed in the sound that there's never pure silence. There's always
you're
just
right. It never entirely
a little
dies
draw.
away.
Yeah, it's such a cool effect.
It just fades enough to heighten your senses again and then blasts you it.
Oh, here it comes. Yeah. This song has a very odd distinction of being the hardest one off of the album, at least so far. I feel comfortable in saying. But also that organ, and maybe it's specifically the portative, that organ makes it have the most Renaissance feel as well.
Are you referring to...
Yes. Yeah. It just has this ecclesiastical feel.
Yeah. Yeah, very... what's the word I'm looking for? Courtly, aristocratic.
Yeah.
Fancy pants.
I see... Indulge me for a moment.
Oh, let me indulge you.
I see Michael Riley in mitre and robes standing in front of a rock band conducting this song.
Wow.
No one will understand that reference?
I think he's been astral projecting into your dreams again.
Again? I used to have dreams about him in high school, right?
and then you gave him a cease and desist letter.
And then my lawyer spoke to him and he stopped.
Stop astral projecting into Nick's dreams. Well, I'm sure we can talk more about music as it comes up. Oh, one thing to note, it is in some sort of an even count, either 4, 4, or 2, 2.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, maybe it is just 4/4.
3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, and I think that aids it in that driving forward feeling.
Sure. Nothing too complex to have to wrap your mind around. They let the instruments speak the complexity, not the time signature.
Exactly, because the instruments do kind of drift on and off of that and pull against that time signature.
Yeah.
They rear up and froth at the mouth against the time signature, but the time signature controls them tightly.
Oh, the structure.
The firm hand. So, let's talk about the lyrics, Nick.
Sure.
Well, let me drink some water.
Is this, and this is pure speculation, is this an Ian fantasy of, boy, if I were only in the medieval period, and it's like a 2-tiered fantasy. It's like, boy, I would love to live then, and wouldn't it be great if this happened when I lived there at that time?
Well, yes. Where does this fall into the category of Tull songs? I think this is definitely, Ian writing as fictional narrator.
Yes. I was just being cheeky. I don't honestly think it's like a straight up Ian fantasy, but I mean, there's enough fondness that comes through that who knows?
Yeah, so let's dig into the content a little bit. So let's look at the lyrics. So Nick, you said medieval, and I think that we need to do a kind of a brief overview, especially for our American listeners, about the history of hunting in England.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I think there is a definitively different connotation between American and English hunting.
Right. In America, we come from the tradition of the frontier and the lone woodsman or woodswoman,
woodsperson
going out with a gun to provide for their family. Boom. Venison.
Have some rabbit filled with pellets.
And yes, filled with lead. But in England, it was much more of a an institution, a social institution, and it does go, of course, all the way back to the dawn of human eating, but as early as the Middle Ages and certainly the Renaissance, it was a recreation, it was a sport, especially of the aristocracy, the upper classes.
That's the thing is the peasantry could hunt, but they couldn't hunt on the aristocracy's land, and if they were caught doing so, it was poaching, and they were punished probably pretty gosh darn severely, and
often by death or worse.
Yeah, it was just another example of the rich not even needing to hunt for food, doing it strictly for sport, controlling all of the best land with their own money.
Of course, yes.
And just keeping the poor guy down.
And, typically in England, that type of hunting was the purview of men. It was mostly men who hunted. Henry VIII, famous hunter.
Yeah, the gender man, not like human race man.
Not human race man, yes. Yes, it was a very gendered sport. However, there are important examples of women hunting throughout history. One, it's talking about what you were just speaking of regarding poaching. Mm-hmm. There were some interesting laws on the books back in the day, I think in the medieval and early Renaissance periods, where women couldn't be held responsible for their own crimes if they were married.
Wait, so did the man get in trouble for it? Or was it just kind of a wash?
I think it created an opportunity for a wash, at least. Okay. So what would happen is women would go and poach.
Yeah.
And then the argument could be made of, well, she's just a woman. She doesn't know what's going on.
Sir, it's a full moon, and she just, I couldn't control her. I was off working in the field.
And she did touch the deer, so it's polluted, so we may as well keep it.
Throw it out.
So that was sort of an interesting thing. But then when you get into the formal hunt, there were exceptional examples of women hunters, including Queen Elizabeth I, who was referred to by Sir Walter Raleigh as a chasseresse, meaning a huntress, and the living embodiment of Artemis or Diana, the Greek gods of hunting.
I was going to bring those up, the fact that the Greek and Roman gods for the hunt are actually goddesses, are women.
Yes, absolutely. There was also Queen Isabella, the wife of Edward II, Mary of Burgundy, the young wife of the Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian I. If you were at the very, very top of society and you were a woman, you could get away with hunt without any kind of pushback.
But that being said, that list, all of them were wives of kings except for Liz I. She was
king.
She was the virgin king queen everything. So she's a bit of an outlier, I think, in that regard, because she could embody the masculine as well as the feminine, and she did.
Exactly. So this brings up the interesting point. Where do we get, in what time period are we referring to the hunting girl? So as you go forward in history, women involved in hunting becomes more, there are more examples of it. And also as you move forward, things like deer and boar are essentially hunted pretty much to extinction or hunted to an extreme rarity. And therefore, what you then get is the fox hunt.
Right.
So a fox hunt is pure sport. No one's going to eat a fox, or at least I don't recommend it. But it gives you the thrill of the chase.
Yeah.
You release the hounds run after the fox, you run after the hounds, and everyone has a great time.
Yeah.
So this in the Edwardian and Victorian periods, this became the dominant hunting sport.
Sure.
And around this time, around the 1860s, mid-1800s, women became more and more included in the hunt. And this was a very gradual process.
Because it was more of an event.
It was absolutely more of an event. So, initially you would get like, okay, we're doing a hunt. It's going to be great fun. Oh, yes, I guess the women can come watch if they want.
Yeah.
And then, but it was still very much the domain of the gender of man. And then There were women who were upwardly mobile or part of the aristocracy who would get training in riding. Whereas, men would be put on horses from the time they were kids, and so they would just sort of learn by doing. Women would actually start to be trained, and they started realizing, well, wait a minute, I actually can ride pretty well. And so then you started getting this thing of like, oh, yes, I suppose the women can come along if they stay out of the way.
Right.
And so then there was this whole period of like, yes, okay, women can come on the hunt as long as they have a dedicated guide.
Yes. That feeble woman needs someone to take care of her at all times.
Right.
Yeah.
And then something happened which, as so often, affects the trajectory of history, Nick. There was a technological innovation. So women, for most of history, had ridden side saddle, which is a terrible and uncomfortable way of riding, where you fold one leg over the saddle so that you're sort of sitting like on a chair, twisting yourself halfway around so you can see where you're going.
You're literally sideways, yeah.
You're literally sideways. The argument being that it was horribly indecent for a woman to ride astride
with
like
legs
a man.
split, yeah. Yeah, it also is a lot easier to fall off because you're not straddling the horse, so you can't You can't go over uneven ground. You can't go too fast.
So that this prevented women from galloping, from jumping, from going at the speeds required to participate in the hunt. Okay, well then someone invented an extra saddle piece, basically a newer, fancier saddle, which locked the woman's leg into place. They were still riding side saddle.
Okay.
But they basically put their folded leg into a kind of a leather envelope that was hooked around a horn, which locked them onto the saddle.
Okay.
Meaning that suddenly they could do all the things that they couldn't do before.
Sure.
And the inclusion of women in the hunt, then what men started realizing is, oh, these drunk assholes that I hunt with are much less likely to swear and act like total gross dudes.
Peasants.
Yeah, when there's a woman here.
So that is the aristocrat saying that these guys are lowering the class of my high society hunting excursion.
Yes, or to flip it, to say that, the inclusion of women actually elevates the sport.
Sure, okay. Because it's not just a bunch of aristocrats. It's their waitstaff, it's their butlers, it's everybody, because God knows they got to go in comfort.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's glamping is what it is.
But the hunty part of, barreling after the hounds, that was, that's the fun bit. And so that's the bit that they wanted to make sure that they were included with.
Sure.
And then eventually what began happening, and this is what this amazing article that I read was detailing. Let me actually pull up the name of the author so that we are giving cred. The inclusion of this article is entirely due to the huntress of my heart, my darling wife, who, because she's in grad school, was able to use her JSTOR account to download me this article entitled Vixens of Venery, Women, Sport, and Fox Hunting in Britain 1860 to 1914 by Erica Monkwitz.
And that's an abuse of power. I'm going to report her to the board immediately.
Abstract. In the years between 1860 and 1914, more women than ever pursued equestrian activities throughout Britain. A study of riding manuals for ladies shows why these pursuits became so popular and how female equestrians used sports such as fox hunting to revise, but not reject, traditional gender roles. So, essentially, from this article by Erica Monkwitz, we get this narrative of women using fox hunting as a way to elevate their own place within the sporting world.
Which therefore puts them in a more overall, not necessarily level per se, because God knows it's still not level.
But it's a step.
But a lot closer to that boundary of man.
Exactly. And when you read the article, which the author read, these training manuals for horse riding ship, written by women for women, there's a lot of talk about the mental training that needs to happen. Saying that you have to be in control of your horse. Don't let him lead you where he wants to go. You are in control. You have to be taking the reins. And pointing out in the manuals that, this psychological stance or this kind of behavior can transfer out of the saddle.
How groundbreaking and amazing to hear. That is so awesome. That's so awesome to hear. I just want to note one more thing before we go back to the song.
Yes, finally.
In that abstract, she said, revising, not rejecting.
Right.
And that is so brilliant. That's so brilliant.
Right, because not only were they riding as hard and as fast as men were riding, they were doing so with more dignity and more class than the men.
Uh-huh. You'll get nowhere if you tell a powerful white man that he's wrong. You won't. I'm sorry.
But if you ride your horse better and faster than he can, he'll notice.
He will notice. Yeah.
And then if you happen to also have business dealings, I mean, I think of it sort of like, I imagine that it was a lot like golf for the English aristocracy. That's like, I'm sure the post-hunting field was where a lot of business deals were made. So it was this amazing inroad of social and psychological empowerment for women. Enter the hunting girl in this song. And I do think that in terms of time period, I do think that I imagine this song taking place in sort of the Edwardian Victorian era.
Sure. That makes sense with all of I'm so glad you did that research. That's super, super interesting and super helpful. And I think it does really pin this down in a broad sense of at least some rough time period.
It'll never happen again.
It'll never.
And one final note, just to observe that whole world was very, very, very English.
Yes.
It was almost at the time the national sport of England and very specific to England.
It was a very different world if you cross the pond and look at the States in the turn of the 19th, 20th century.
Yes. Ooh, please don't look.
If it's going from 19 to 20, is that the turn of the 19th or the turn of the 20th? It's the turn of the 19th, right?
I think you just say it's the turn of the century.
What century, Owen? We'll never know.
Oh, no.
So does our titular character lose control of her horse, or does she pretend to lose control of her horse?
My opinion is that, so you're referring to the line, let's see, we have our narrator seeing the hunt, racing past, and you're referring to the line, one fine young lady's horse refused the fence to clear.
Mm-hmm. I sure am.
One fine young lady's horse refused the fence to clear.
It is my opinion, based on this historical research, that a lady in this position would have been sufficiently skilled to absolutely make the jump.
Yeah.
And also sufficiently skilled to make it appear as though she couldn't.
Right. If every other chucklehead has made that jump, you bet your saddle horn that she would be able to make that jump. But she saw a rather comely peasant man on the side of the road.
She's not on the hunt for the fox.
No.
She's on the hunt for the cox. Oops.
She has found her prey. Whoop. She has found her prey.
She's found her prey, yeah. So she dissembles. She gets our narrator to unlock the gate. But she did wait until the pack had disappeared.
But she did wait until the pack had disappeared.
Right. By way of breaking the ice, so to speak, she's could you open that gate for me, please?
Yeah. Or, I mean, based on the social disparity between the two characters here, he might have just been like, oh my God, yes, let me just get that for you. I'm so sorry.
Oh, yeah. Also that. And if she did have to jump, she would have to back up. She'd have to retrace her steps to get a running start for the horse to jump. So, I mean, it just makes sense physiologically and logically to go through the gate.
Yeah, so then we have this fabulous description. Crop handle carved in bone, sat high upon her throne of finest English leather.
Leather, 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 leather.
Crop handle carved in bone, sat high upon a throne of finest English leather, leather, leather.
A little historical note, the women's saddles that were specially modified for riding side saddle were way more expensive than the men's saddles.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, so this lady is well off.
She's well off, yeah. Whether she's a part of the aristocracy or whether she's a part of the middle class who has upward intentions and whose family has been successful enough, or she herself has been successful enough, or she's married successfully enough to afford the kit. Yes, she has money.
Yeah.
And therefore power.
My absolute favorite line, I laughed out loud when we listened to it earlier. My absolute favorite line is next. The queen of all the pack, this joker raised his hat and talked about the weather.
Yep.
The queen of all the pack, this joker raised his hat and talked about the weather.
Like, what do you do? What do you do when a highfalutin aristocracy lady stops and you have to open the fence for her? You're like,
and then she's staring you down.
Lovely day for a ride, ma'am. Ugh.
Nice day for a fox hunt, I assume. I've never done it.
Ugh. I would like to fox hunt if it were today. She eats you up with her eyes.
Right. And then he has the warning, all should be warned about this highborn hunting girl.
Yeah. All should be warned about this highborn hunting girl.
So, Nick, I had a revelation when I was looking at the lyrics this time round. So, obviously, what happens next is we have an encounter of a sexual nature between our characters, in which there is a distinct power dynamic.
Uh-huh.
And when I was thinking about the song, I was like, oh, the brilliant thing about this song is that it's so veiled in metaphor, and there's nothing really explicit about it.
It is barely veiled.
I was wrong.
It is tissue paper veiled.
Yeah. So Nick, I like to think of our podcast as being sex positive.
I should think so. I mean, we're nearly everything positive.
Yeah, just about. Not fascism, definitely.
Yeah.
But yes, sex positive, and here I think that we should aspire to be kink friendly, or at least kink non-judgmental.
Sure. Consent away, baby.
Yeah.
If you want to give or receive anything from this song, and all parties involved are good with it, as long as you do it safely, more power to you.
But let's talk about, Nick, why is this song so kinky?
There is definite sadomasochist over and undertones.
Yes. You're referring to the reference to her crop handle, all the references to leather, perhaps.
Boot leather, spur,
Yep. Breathe it out.
Something I caught this time around, really, really paying attention to the lyrics, spur necks the size of my thumb.
Boot leather flashing, the spur necks the size of my thumb.
Right. What is this? What is that?
So the spur is the piece that goes around the heel of the boot.
Right.
And it is generally leather or some metal molded around it. And at the heel is a piece of metal that comes out and holds the spur. The spur is usually a sharp piece of metal that you dig into the haunches of the horse to get them to go faster or...
Right. And it turns. It's a little circle and it turns on a spindle.
Usually it's goading, it's punishing.
Right.
But the spur neck is the thing, the metal that projects from the boot and makes it project out from the boot. So the fact that the spur neck is not some dainty little spindle, but the size of his thumb implies that the spur itself is significant.
Well, and it almost implies that she's some kind of Amazonian presence.
That's exactly where I was going, is that this lady likes to... She gets a little kick out of causing pain here, which she obviously does with her horse by using such a big spur.
Oh, interesting, yeah.
And therefore, it will obviously translate to this other animal that is not even as good as her horse.
Right. There's also, if you look at this scene physically, she is on the horse and therefore, a good almost 6 feet above where he's standing.
Uh-huh.
Which mimics the power dynamic here. And I think that the power dynamic is the kinkiest thing about all of this.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost the opposite of the Ray Lomas scene. Rather than him riding up on his... there we have a certain power dynamic. He's older, he's fashionable, he's preying on these impressionable young women. This is the opposite. The hunting girl is rich, well-bred, has money, is physically seated higher, is a sportswoman, is physically, impressive and skillful.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy's just some rando. with a pretty face.
With how quick the turn happens in this song, I am very confident in saying this is not the first time this lady did this.
I think you're right.
And also, I'm about to give you the best joke I've ever made in my entire life.
Oh my gosh, I've waited so long. What is it?
Omen, this is 50 Shades of Green.
Oh God, that's the highlight of your joke career, Nick. That was great.
I'm proud of it. So we see the description of her kit used both for her horse and for the other beast of burden.
Mm-hmm.
The boot leather, the spurnex, etc. This highborn hunter had tastes as strange as they come.
As they come.
This highborn hunter that tastes as strange as they come.
Unbridled passion, I took the bit in my teeth.
Unbridled passion, I took the bit in my teeth.
So the bit is the part that the horse literally holds in their teeth, and it's what the reins attach to, so you can pull either side and direct the horse. It's basically the steering wheel.
Now, that could be literally she put a horse bit in his teeth, or it could be metaphorical that she physically took control of the situation.
True. Although, part of me wants to say that it is actually physical because of the unbridled passion.
No, interesting.
Because to unbridle means to take your kit off of your horse.
Yeah.
Her standing over me on my knees underneath.
Her standing over me on my knees underneath.
So, Nick, you are envisioning that she's riding our narrator like he's a little pony.
Yeah. Let's talk physiology for a second. He's getting nothing out of this unless he enjoys getting whipped and humiliated. Because if she's on top when he's on his knees, what's going to happen?
He's going to get his knees bruised.
He's going to get bruised knees.
Yeah. Well, I had actually read it in a different way. So
Okay.
I'm glad that you had that interpretation. I had read it that the bit was not the actual bit of the horse, but that she. Wow, I'm trying to think of a way of saying this that isn't just a.
You're saying the bit is a part of her anatomy.
Yes, that she
Gotcha.
took a ride on his face.
Okay. Yeah. I can see that.
Took a little mustache ride.
Yeah. Took a repose upon his...
On his nose.
Face. Repose on his nose. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's possible too. Yeah. And she clearly likes the little rough, so if there's a little nibbling going on, then...
Oh my.
You know?
We didn't need to go there, Nick.
So be it. Oh, please.
Okay.
The only thing is me on my knees underneath.
Well, he could be on his knees and she could be standing.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. Okay.
Because she doesn't want to get her stuff dirty on the ground.
Well, sure. If she's got layers of petticoats and stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, logically. So we get a tiny little instrumental break between her standing over me on my knees underneath and before we get into My Lady Be Discreet.
A tiny instrumental break, which is nonetheless pretty energetic.
Oh, it's a fantastic part of the song, just like the whole piece. But right before he says, "My lady, be discreet," there is a whip crack.
Is there really?
Yep. It's way back.
Wow.
It's very easy to miss, but it's in there. I hope I can isolate it enough to play it. I'll drop it in here if I can.
Great.
My lady.
So then we have, "My lady, be discreet, I must get to my feet and go back to the farm. Whilst I appreciate you are no deviate, I might come to some harm."
My lady, be discreet. I must get to my feet and go back to the farm. Whilst I appreciate you are no deviate, I might come to some harm.
Let's break that down, Nick.
I think there's double meaning there.
Oh, interesting.
I think you're beating the hell out of me here.
Okay.
So I'm not quite accustomed to this, even though I'm clearly a farmer and I get beat up just doing physical labor. Like
Right. This is too rough for me.
Yeah. But also, like, if they got caught, he would be killed.
Yeah.
He would be killed instantly.
Right, because of the class system.
The class distinction. How dare you touch a lady? She made me. I had literally no choice. Yeah, but you can't touch a lady.
Yeah, well, also, I mean, then it's his word against hers.
Yeah.
She could just blame everything on him, or she could admit it, and either way, he'd be the one in trouble.
Exactly. So, yeah.
And then they'd be like, oh, now we understand why Lady Fotheringham always disappears on the hunt.
We'd have to go hunting more often. I'm not inclined to act refined if that's how it goes.
I'm not inclined to act refined if that's how it goes.
So he's trying to describe what his experience just was as acts refined, because he doesn't have any other way of referring to it, and he doesn't want to offend her.
Because he's so lowly that they just rut like pigs in the stall. What she's doing is clearly something far beyond his league.
Yeah, and above his pay grade.
Above a lot of things. And then the final line is actually a velvet mondegreen that I've always heard before. Makes no sense. And I've actually got a velvet mondegreen sting. You haven't heard it yet. You'll hear it in an earlier episode prior to this. But
so the line is, "Oh, highborn hunting girl, I'm just a normal low-born so-and-so."
Oh, highborn hunting girl, I'm just a normal low-born so-and-so.
Yeah.
So what did you used to hear?
Wait, I want to play my sting first.
Okay.
Is it a bear? Is he shaking his hair? Is it velvet mondegreen?
Oh my God.
So proud.
That's wonderful.
So proud. And it doesn't make any sense in the song at all, but I always heard I'm just a normal lowborn so-and-so as I'm just a normal noble so-and-so.
Huh.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense in the song, but that's it. That's my velvet mondegreen.
Good to know. I didn't ever realize that the first line was, one day I walked the road and crossed a field to go by.
One day I walked the roads and crossed a field to go by where the hounds ran hard.
I had never heard any of those words before.
Oh, really?
I just heard, where the hunts ran by.
Yeah. Like the instrumentation, he starts out hard out of the gate, which is a very apt analogy here.
Yeah, it's like you have to wait for the automatic translator to kick in before you can understand what's happening. So, oh, highborn hunting girl, I'm just a normal lowborn so-and-so. So I sort of get the impression that he's survived this experience, and he's slowly backing away.
Yes.
Pulling up his breeches.
Like there's a cougar there.
Literally.
Like there's a literal cougar, and he's trying to save himself. Because, honestly, one wrong step, and he could really, really set himself up for disaster.
Absolutely. Yeah, if he pisses her off, she could make his life a living hell, or she could make sure that he dies. And that's what's so kinky about this, is that she has all the power.
Every drop of it. So even though she is on the lower echelons of the aristocracy, just by virtue of being a woman, she's still leaps and bounds above this guy.
Well, and she could be still pretty high up.
Right. I'm saying just as a woman, she can only be so high, unless she's like Queen Elizabeth.
Sure. Right. Yeah, so she has, she's got all the power. Well, the other great thing about this song is that we don't have her saying a single word.
All that we know about this exchange is what he describes, what our narrator basically tells us is going on.
Yes, and what he says to her.
Right.
But all we know about her are what she looks like and what her actions are. And so I sort of like to imagine that this entire thing took place without her saying anything.
Yes, I like that a lot.
And that goes back to the whole training manual on how to command a horse. And, one of the interesting things is that in some of these training manuals, it says that women have potentially the ability to be better riders than men, because while men can tell their mounts what to do by brute force, women have the power of subtlety and compassion.
Yeah.
So that they can understand their horse, and because, quote unquote, they don't have the strength physical of men, they depend on more subtlety. So a woman, in theory, according to these manuals, can get a better performance out of a horse by virtue of subtle and specific signals. I imagine that could translate to this scenario as well.
Yeah. It's more, what is it? You get more flies with honey than vinegar.
Yes. Spank more flies with honey.
Yep. And you smear the honey on random bits of your body.
Cool. Yeah. Nick, anything else to say about Hunting Girl?
No, I think we covered a lot of it.
I'm worn out.
I need a nap. Yeah. Yeah.
We didn't talk about one of my favorite lines. I raised the flag that she unfurled.
She took the simple man's downfall with hands. I raised the flag that she unfurled.
I knew it. I went back and saw it, and I saw that we missed it, and honestly, it's not a surprise that we had to address it.
It's a great line. It has more than one meaning. It's sort of a triple entendre, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's great.
It's great. It's great. This song is great.
Song, great. Hunting Girl, great. Songs from the Wood, great.
What song are we talking next week?
Next week, we are talking about Solstice Bells.
Yes, ring out solstice bells.
Ding
a little
dong.
Interesting history on solstice bells. I mean, nothing too in depth, but interesting. Yeah, interesting. Solstice bells. Come back next week.
Yes, we'll get into it a week from today.
Yep.
In the meantime, ooh.
The kinkiest thing you can do for me is leave 5 marks on Apple Podcasts.
That's right.
In the form of stars.
Yeah. Tell us exactly what this podcast does for you by way of
Tell
a
everyone.
5-star review.
Yeah, let everybody know.
Shame us. Shame us publicly with a 5-star review.
Also, after you do that, head on over to patreon.com/talktull-to-me and give us a subscription, give us a gander, and hopefully we'll see you there so you can check out some more of our content that we have to offer.
Yes, you could be our $1 sugar daddy.
The cheapest sugar we could get.
It's basically corn syrup. Until next week, I am Omen Sade.
And I am Nick McGill.
Together we are Feckless Momes.
And this, believe it or not, is Talk Tull to Me. Oh, Lady Pennyfeather. Lady Pennyfeather, stop! Do you see that peasant there?
Oh, yes. His buttocks is indeed shaped like several watermelons.
Oh, how supple it is. You there, peasant. Yes,
come here, yes.
Yes, do me a favor. Sit on that log. Oh.
Oh. Wait a moment. I've dropped my handkerchief. Won't you bend over and pick it up?
Pick it up. No,
Yes.
don't bend at the knees. Bend at the waist.
Bend and snap.
Oh my. Oh, look at this. Look at this wooden spoon I have in my pack. Put it in your teeth.
Yes. Oh, yes, bite it. It still has the remnants of polenta on it. You can taste it, I'm sure.
The Italian grain.
Yes. Lady Bisnoth.
Yes, Lady Pennyfeather.
We should most assuredly come hunting in Kensington more often.
Oh, I feel like I'm in a Kensington haze.
Did we say you could go anywhere? No, we did not.
Stay there.
No, take off your shoes so you can't run away.
Filthy.
That's right.
Filthy.
That's right.
Eat your shoes. Eat them.
Eat them, lick them, yes. Oh, how delightful.
Now, I have an idea, Lady Pennyfeather.
What is it, Lady Bumthoth?
We'll make him say something.
No, what's something naughty?
Have him tell us.
Yes?
What Talk Told to Me is a proud member of.
You trying to get him to say Then it's a proud member of the Feckless Gnomes Audio Network, aren't you?
I am!
Oh, how delightfully sinful.
Oh, damn, we have to go.
No, you stay. We didn't say you could go anywhere. You stay here and wait till next week.